Every year, more than 1.7 million tons of honey are produced worldwide. But some of it doesn't even come from bees. How do honey megafactories really operate? What happens to bees inside this industrial system? And the scariest part, what are we actually eating when we consume supermarket honey? Today we're diving deep into the hidden world of industrial honey, from cloned queens and trucked hives to fake honey scandals that span the globe. Welcome to Deep POV. For most of human history, honey was sacred. A golden gift harvested with care from wild hives, forest groves, and hand-carved wooden boxes passed down for generations. In ancient Egypt, honey wasn't food. It was medicine, currency, even an offering to the gods. Entire families would hike miles to collect it, risking stings and falls for just a few drops. The bees were respected, not just as insects, but as divine workers in harmony with nature. But that harmony didn't last. By the 19th century, as trade routes expanded and sugar grew cheap, honey faced competition. But it didn't disappear. It evolved. The invention of the modern beehive, with removable frames and smoke to pacify bees, changed everything. Suddenly, beekeepers could harvest more, faster, with less risk. Efficiency replaced ritual. Then came the real shift: demand. Global food industries began using honey in cereals, snacks, sauces, and supplements. Export markets exploded. What once was seasonal and local became international and constant. In just a few decades, honey was no longer tied to a village or a grove. It became a product measured not in purity, but in volume. Today, over 1.7 million tons of honey are produced each year. But behind that number lies a truth few want to face. Because to meet that demand, a new kind of hive was born. One that doesn't buzz in a meadow, but hums inside a megafactory. And what's inside? It's not just honey. It's chemicals, clones, and colonies pushed far beyond their natural limits. Because in the age of industrial apiculture, the bees work harder than ever. And they're starting to die because of it. But before we talk about death, we need to talk about design. Modern bees are no longer wild. They're manufactured. At the core of today's honey empire lies a quiet revolution, one that doesn't happen in fields, but in labs, breeding centers, and artificial insemination units. Every queen bee in a commercial hive is born not by chance, but by choice. Selected for productivity, temperament, compliance. Her wings are clipped so she cannot fly. Her genetics are controlled, and she is inseminated, not by a swarm, but by a technician with a needle. Why? Because in this system, nature is too slow. Beekeepers no longer wait for bees to mate, they engineer it. This practice, once rare, is now standard in high-yield operations across the globe, from California to China, and with each generation, bees are becoming more uniform, more efficient, but also more fragile. These queens don't live the 5 years they used to. Some die after one, and their colonies collapsing faster than ever.
Suddenly you've got starving poisoned bees, and guess what? They get sick.
But the system doesn't stop. Because when a queen dies, another is shipped in, packaged in a small plastic cage, a barcode on her back. Then there's the food. In nature, bees collect a rich variety of pollens from wild flowers. But in these megafarms, they're fed sugar water, sometimes corn syrup, to keep them going. Why waste time on flowers when syrup is faster? Because this isn't about honey anymore. It's about output. And what happens when the bees collapse? They're replaced. Because in the factory model of nature, death is just a cost of doing business. But the real damage? It's not just to the bees. It's to the world they once pollinated. And in the next chapter, you'll see how far this damage has spread. Each spring, a strange migration begins. Hundreds of thousands of beehives, stacked like wooden coffins, are loaded onto flatbed trucks and driven across continents. These are the nomadic hives of industrial agriculture. Their destination? Monocultures, endless fields of almonds, blueberries and citrus, crops that cannot grow without pollinators, yet offer nothing in return but pollen from a single species for a single season. In California alone, over 80% of the world's almonds are grown. But to pollinate those orchards, the state must import over 2 million hives every year. The bees arrive exhausted. The fields are drenched in pesticides, and the trees offer only one kind of nectar for just a few weeks.
Highly toxic to bees, they degrade relatively quickly. The neonicotinoids take years to degrade in the environment. And what that means is you're going to continue to poison the bees for many years after you apply these pesticides. They're so widely marketed and so widely used that they're really everywhere now.
Then it's back on the truck. Florida, Texas, North Dakota, wherever the next bloom begins. It's a brutal cycle. Bees are shaken, bumped, overheated. Many die en route. Others return to their hives, confused, unable to navigate through the chemical haze.
We don't quite have answers as to what to do about it. One guy doesn't know the other guy's bees are there, and next thing you know, they get dead bees and an upset beekeeper.
But the clock doesn't care, because if the crop isn't pollinated in time, billions of dollars are lost. So the bees are pushed again and again until their colonies weaken, collapse, or vanish entirely. This is not apiculture. This is logistics. And the cost isn't just insect lives. Studies show that this constant migration weakens bee immune systems, increases disease transmission, amplifies parasite infestations like the varroa mite. Even wild bee species who aren't part of this system are dying in its shadow, displaced by chemicals and competition. Because the modern mega farm doesn't make room for biodiversity, it makes room for profit. And while this system depends on bees, it's also destroying them. But just when you think it can't get worse, you find out what's really in the honey. And it's not what you expect. Open a jar of honey. Golden, thick, sweet. But what if I told you it might be fake? In 2018, a massive investigation revealed that much of the honey sold in global markets was not pure honey at all, but a cocktail of syrups, additives, and manipulated ingredients. It's called honey laundering, and it's one of the largest food fraud scandals in modern history. The method is simple. Take cheap syrup from rice, corn, or sugarcane and mix it with real honey. Then filter out the pollen, which erases the origin trace. Finally, export it under a fake label. The result? A product that looks, tastes, and smells like honey, but isn't. China is the world's largest honey exporter, but many of its shipments have been found adulterated, a claim repeatedly denied, yet consistently proven in lab tests. To avoid detection, exporters have routed their honey through third countries, laundering the origin along the way. Meanwhile, Western supermarkets are flooded with jars labeled 100% pure, even though scientific testing shows otherwise. And here's the worst part. Most consumers can't tell the difference. Even governments struggle to enforce purity standards. Testing is expensive, regulation is inconsistent, and the pressure to keep prices low, relentless.
Tested the dust, they know how bad this chemical issue is coming off the corn, but when you talk to them, the first thing out of the guy's mouth is, what do you want me to do? Tell a farmer he can't use his new $150,000 piece of equipment.
As a result, real beekeepers who raise bees ethically and harvest honest honey are being crushed. They can't compete with synthetic prices. Their work is devalued, their businesses disappear, and the global market rewards the counterfeit because fake honey is cheaper, more stable, easier to control. But while the profit is real, so is the lie. And as long as the system stays quiet, the fraud continues. But that silence doesn't happen by accident. Someone's protecting it. And in our final chapter, we'll uncover who. Walk into any grocery store. Rows of honey jars labeled natural, organic, raw. Images of flowers, bees, and pristine meadows. Names like Golden Harvest or Nature's Touch. But behind that warm branding is a cold machine. Major food corporations source honey through complex, multi-layered supply chains. Brokers, middlemen, relabelers, all designed to blur the trail from hive to shelf. And when scandals erupt, the responses are carefully managed. In 2019, one of the largest honey importers in the US was caught knowingly buying adulterated honey from China. The fine? A fraction of their annual revenue. No executives went to jail. No stores recalled the product. Because in this industry, deception is not the exception. It's the business model. And the biggest players know how to protect it. Lobbying against stricter testing laws, funding independent food councils, even influencing how regulators define honey itself. The goal? Keep the illusion intact. Because when the consumer sees a golden jar with a bee on it, they believe. They don't imagine synthetic syrups. Dead colonies, queens clipped and inseminated like livestock. They remember breakfast with their grandparents. Ta on a cold day. Comfort. That's the power of story. What? But the real story, the one behind the curtain, is darker. A system that mass produces life, manipulates nature, and rewrites purity for profit. And the final deception isn't in the honey. It's in what we choose to believe. 1 in 3 jars of honey tested globally showed signs of adulteration, and you've probably eaten it without ever knowing. And that's the bitter truth behind the world's sweetest illusion. If this video revealed something you didn't know, share it, subscribe, because here we're revealing what's building the world, one factory at a time.